So many of us know that one person who is so entitled, so privileged that they think that they can do whatever they want, treat people however they want, and get away with it. People you can't stand to be around because they think everyone is beneath them. Oftentimes, these people grow to act this way because they were raised in a home where they were never told no, where they were told that they are better than everybody else. And when you end up in a position to reject this type of person, all hell breaks loose. And tragically, that is what happened in today's case. But before we get into this wild ride of a case, I want to take a quick moment to thank Trade Coffee for partnering with me on today's video. I've been using Trade for a few months now, and I've been loving it. Trade knows that no one type of coffee fits all. Some of us like a nice dark roasted coffee, while others, such as myself, prefer a less intense flavor that a medium roast offers. And that is where Trade comes in. Trade maps your specific preferences to hundreds of different coffee flavor profiles, and their technology will pair you with the best coffees using art and science, bringing industry expertise and machine learning together. For one of my orders, I was matched with the High Five blend from Sparrows, which is just delicious. They hit it right on the head with this one. The High Five blend is a medium roast that offers a chocolatey sweetness with a tiny hint of orange zest. I like to make it in the morning and add just a bit of sweetener and cream. I always make eggs for breakfast every morning, so to go with my savory breakfast, I love to add this sweet little treat to my routine to start my day off right. I love that Trade delivers coffee right to my door exactly when I need it. There are multiple different ways to experience coffee with Trade. To try it out for yourself, make sure you head to drinktrade.com/RachelShannon by following the link below, and you can get 15% off plus a free bag of roasted to order coffee with select subscriptions. Again, that's drinktrade.com/RachelShannon to get started on your Trade coffee subscription now. Thank you again to Trade Coffee for partnering with me on today's video. Just a note to let all of you guys know, this is my second time recording the first half of this video. Last time when I recorded it, I forgot to turn my mic on. So the entire first half of the original audio was really bad, so I went ahead to re-record this to make sure the audio is still good for you guys. So when I completely change how I look midway through the video, don't be surprised because that is why. That is past Rachel, this is present Rachel recording this video right now because I forgot to turn on my mic for the first half of the last video that I recorded. So just to be aware. But without any further delay, let's get into today's case. Today, we're going to be discussing the horrific case of Emily Longely. Emily Longely was born on February 22nd, 1994 to parents Mark and Carolyn in London, England, and she had one sister named Hannah. Emily and her family lived in England until Emily was about 10 years old, and it was at that time that her family moved to New Zealand, which was a big change for the family. But according to Emily's father, they made this move because Emily was dealing with some health issues, and they felt that moving would be the best thing for her. And by all accounts, it was. She had always been a quiet, shy little girl, but after moving and experiencing an outdoorsy lifestyle, she broke out of her shell and absolutely blossomed. She and her father Mark would play tennis and cricket and football. They could spend hours just being outside, hitting around a ball, and enjoying each other's company. They were safe and happy in their new home, and things were going well. Emily was also known to be beautiful on the inside and out. When Emily was just 13 years old, she was spotted by one of New Zealand's biggest modeling agencies, and soon her face was all over advertisements all across the country. But beyond her outer beauty, she had a great sense of humor, always getting those around her to break out into laughter so hard their stomach would hurt. Her father described that she liked to poke fun at him, always trying to find a new way to have a laugh. But on the other hand, she was also very warm and loving. She showed endless affection to those she loved most, making sure to give family members the biggest hug when she saw them. Growing up, Emily was known as being a very determined person. If she set her mind to something, she would do what it took to accomplish it. So, by 2010, at the age of 16, Emily decided that she wanted to head back to the UK to complete her studies. Of course, her parents didn't want her to leave, but she was determined and set on this idea. So off she went, moving to the town of Bournemouth on England's south coast, where she lived with her grandparents. Of course, Mark and Carolyn were devastated to see her go, but they were confident that she would be safe living with her grandparents in an area she had been familiar with. From there, Emily was in the process of starting her studies at Brockenhurst College. She was hoping to work towards a degree in business. Now, according to Emily's father, Emily had not always done well in school. She had to work much harder than her peers just to get by, but she was hopeful for this new college experience. She was relaxed and she was going to be with friends who she loved spending time with and studying with. In school, she had a tutor who loved working with her and even once said that it was because of people like her that he loved being a tutor. While living in the UK, Emily's family heard about just how good of a time she was having. She loved it there. When she would visit her family or they would visit her, she was just glowing, and it was clear that she was living her life to its fullest. One thing that Emily enjoyed doing was going out with friends, and it was during one of those nights out in December of 2010 when she was introduced to 20-year-old Elliot Turner. At first, the two started out as friends. But as they got to know each other more and spent more time together, Elliot fell for Emily, so the two started a relationship. At first, things seemed to be going well. When Emily's grandparents first met him, they thought he was charming and polite. Now, Elliot is the son of Anita and Lee Turner. Anita is originally from Indonesia, while Lee is from a family of vast wealth. Lee's father, or Elliot's grandfather, Gerard Broadway, owns one of the country's oldest silversmith companies, Broadway Silversmiths, which made the family millions. And for Elliot, growing up in a rich family with parents who lived a luxurious, flashy lifestyle, Elliot, of course, followed suit. Elliot was known to be flashy and boastful, with friends referring to him as All Talk Turner. He gloated constantly about his lavish lifestyle, which of course was fully funded by his parents. He would carry around wads of cash and spent exuberant amounts of money on the most ridiculous things. He fancied himself as a playboy who bragged about sleeping with reality TV stars and hanging out with the rich and famous. He also loved partying, going to flashy bars and clubs where he would down $150 bottles of Grey Goose and snort cocaine. But I guess his coke addiction got so bad that his parents spent £30,000 for him to go to rehab. Even this was something that he would brag about. He wanted everybody to know just how much money his parents spent on him to kick his little habit. But of course, as soon as he got out of rehab, he went right back to his unruly lifestyle. In my opinion, when parents raise their children in constant indulgence, giving them everything they want, not making them take any accountability for their actions, they grow into entitled assholes as adults who treat everyone around them as pawns who are beneath them in every way. And Elliot was no exception to that. Even though Emily and Elliot had a very short-lived relationship, the relationship as a whole was described as toxic and abusive. He was cruel, jealous, and extremely possessive. He would call her names and talk down to her. He would try to control what she could wear out and control who she could and could not spend her time with. At one point, he falsely told her friends that she was doing drugs, knowing they wouldn't approve, just to make them mad at her. Then, he figured out a way to hack into her Facebook account so that he could watch what she was doing and see who she was talking to. In March of 2021, Emily had done a photo shoot with shirtless men who were dressed as butlers. It was a photo shoot done as a part of her modeling career. But, of course, this was not going to fly for Elliot. He became enraged when he saw these photos, calling her a whore because of them. Even though, again, he saw himself as a womanizer who could get whatever woman he wanted. There was another incident when the couple went on a little getaway to the Isle of Wight, but during this romantic holiday, he got so upset and angry that he destroyed their hotel room. Things like this were very commonplace in their very short relationship. By April of 2011, Mark and Carolyn were eagerly awaiting Emily's visit back to New Zealand for Easter. At the time, Emily's parents could tell that she was just not the same Emily who had left them just a year prior. She had changed. She seemed a bit more grown up and wasn't as glowing and positive as she normally was. At the time, Emily did tell her parents about the man that she was dating, but she was pretty brief. She did say, though, that she didn't like him much anymore and was planning to break up with him once she returned to the UK. But she did not tell her parents about the abuse or anything else he had put her through. Also, while visiting family over Easter, Emily saw some friends and went out to clubs to party. She was posting all sorts of photos looking like she was having fun and enjoying herself. But, of course, seeing this just made Elliot more and more angry. As she was posting with friends, unbeknownst to her, Elliot was reading all of her Facebook messages, and he was absolutely convinced that she was cheating on him when she went out. It was said that it wasn't necessarily his jealousy over his feelings for her that caused his anger. It was more so that he was worried about how his reputation would look if other people saw Emily out with other men. It was embarrassing to have people know that Emily wasn't interested in him and was publicly associating with other men. This concern could be seen through various text and voice messages he sent to friends and family members. So, when Emily returned back to the UK from her trip to New Zealand, she did break things off with Elliot, but he convinced her to hang out again. By May 5th, going into May 6th, Emily was out at a nightclub with friends where she planned to meet up with Elliot. But according to CCTV cameras, when she met him there, Elliot just waved her off, so she went and minded her own business. But later in the night, she ended up with Elliot again, and this time, a heated argument broke out. Apparently, Emily told him that she hates him, never wants to see him again, and called him a freak. That fight ended with him smashing her head to the table. As a result, Emily and her friends left the club. After Elliot realized she left, he thought that she was going to another event at a nearby venue, so he also went there, hoping to see her there. But when he got there, he saw that Emily wasn't actually at the venue. So, at the time, Elliot left Emily alone. She went about her night, and he went about his separately. But the next time Elliot saw Emily, things wouldn't turn out quite like that. By the following night of May 6th, now going into May 7th, 2011, 17-year-old Emily was out with her friends when once again she ran into Elliot at the club. I'm sure this was not a coincidence, as we know that, again, Elliot had access to read all of Emily's messages, so he'd pretty much always know where she was at all times. Either way, this time when she saw him, the two had another argument, which ended with Emily throwing a drink on Elliot. This caused Elliot to absolutely freak out, and according to friends, he started punching seats, screaming and yelling and saying, "I will kill her. I don't care. I will go to prison and I will still be a millionaire." After this, Emily and her friends left the club and went to Emily's friend's house. After leaving, Elliot followed her to the friend's house and had a word with her. He offered to drive her home, and to me, it almost seems like he might have suggested this idea in a way to make her think that it would just give them more time to talk, so she accepted the ride. But he did not take her home as promised. He drove them to his place, arriving by 12:45 a.m. No one had heard anything from or about Emily until 9:45 a.m. on May 7th. 999 received a call from Elliot's mother, Anita Turner. In the call, she tells the operator that she found her son's friend unresponsive in her son's room and she was unable to wake her. She said that she's lying on the bed and doesn't think she's breathing. She then tells the operator that Emily is wearing a necklace that looks to be very tight around her neck, suggesting that maybe this is why Emily is unresponsive. In the background of the call, Lee can be heard checking for breathing but says that he isn't getting anything. I will try to play the 999 call for you, but I haven't been able to find it anywhere that will actually play the call without some sort of loud and obnoxious music in it. So if I can play it, I will try, but if not, I do apologize. By the time officers arrived to the scene, it was clear that Emily had been dead for several hours. Her skin was pale and she was cold to the touch. Even though the entire Turner family claimed that they had no idea what happened and suggested it could have been the necklace being too tight that probably killed her, Obviously, police knew that something suspicious was going on here. At the time, police found that Elliot had his passport in his pocket and multiple bags were packed in his room, so that was definitely a red flag that he was planning to flee the country. At the scene, after speaking with Elliot's parents, police arrested Elliot on suspicion of murder and took him into the station for further questioning. In the car on the way to the station, initially, Elliot wouldn't say anything to officers. But eventually he said, "I never meant to harm her, I just defended myself." Once they got into the station and sat down with Elliot to talk, he started to say more about what happened. He did mention that there was an argument that happened between the two of them the night before. He said that she was apparently self-harming, and he asked her about it, saying that he would always love her and be there for her, but this just made her angry, I guess, so she started hitting him and kicking him and punching him. He said that Emily did kickboxing, so she did a nice big roundhouse kick to the head. So, as self-defense, he pushed on her neck to get her off of him. He only pushed her on the neck for a total of 5 or 6 seconds. Once he pushed her off, she started coughing, so he went and got her a glass of water. She then complained about having a headache, but after that, the two just went to bed. The next morning, Elliot woke up and found that Emily was unresponsive, so immediately he ran to grab his mom and dad to alert them that something was wrong. According to officers, as he was talking, he fluctuated between periods of being happy and clear when speaking to then breaking down and crying. After this interview, I believe he did have his bail hearing where he was released on bail. Meanwhile, police knew that they needed to continue their investigation to pin down an actual murder conviction because what they had at the time was not quite enough. Of course, at the time, Emily's body was sent off to the medical examiner for an autopsy. Initially, the medical examiner noted that there was not a significant amount of trauma to the body, internally or externally. There was no injury to the soft tissue to her neck and no signs of a struggle. However, he did find small pinprick hemorrhages on Emily's eye and on the inner surface of her lip. Those are caused from the small veins bursting due to a rise in pressure in the head. A common cause of increased pressure to the head is compression on the neck. Therefore, the medical examiner said that it was possible for Emily to have been killed due to asphyxiation from pressure on the neck. The ME went on to say that due to the lack of trauma on her neck, this most likely would have been done by putting Emily into something called a sleeper hold, which is basically where you have your arm bent around someone's neck and then apply pressure by further bending the arm. This would have left little to no injury and could suffocate someone in a relatively short amount of time. The ME did note that Emily was wearing a necklace, but it was relatively loose and could not have been her cause of death. I also want to note that there was a small amount of alcohol found in her system, but it was less than half the legal limit for driving in the UK, so that was not a significant factor in her death. However, because there was a lack of trauma and only a small amount of evidence to suggest strangulation, her manner of death was not listed as a homicide. Instead, it was listed as suspicious. Of course, after finding Emily's body and discovering that she was deceased, authorities called Mark and Carolyn Longley to inform them of the tragic news of their daughter's death. From New Zealand, they flew to the UK to see their daughter's body and figure out what happened. And at that time, they actually believed that Emily's death was a tragic accident. They even said that they felt bad for Elliot having to wake up beside the body of his dead girlfriend. They had no idea of any of the abuse that she had gone through at his hands. They flew the body back to New Zealand for her funeral, where friends and family gathered one last time to say their goodbyes. Now, at this point, police needed to continue their investigation to pin Elliot down for this murder. And if I do say so myself, it seems that it didn't take too much effort for them to find exactly what they were looking for. So I'm going to sort of go through all of this in chronological order to make sense of it all. When examining Elliott's cell phone, they found multiple text and voice messages to Emily as well as to friends and family, which threatened Emily or talked about how he wanted to kill her. It also proved just how abusive Elliot had been during their short 4-month-long relationship. For example, on April 20th, right after Emily got back to England from New Zealand, Elliot left a voice message to a friend saying, quote, "Out of every single bird, I'm gonna effing mess this one up. I'm gonna F her off soon. Absolutely F her off. Definitely." On May 6th, the day before her death, Elliot texted his mother saying that he can't live without Emily. He apologized and said goodbye. Then, as we know, the night of May 5th going into May 6th, that is when Elliot saw Emily at the bar, got into a huge fight with her, shoved her head on the table, and threw a fit. After that, Emily left and they went their separate ways. However, one of the friends that Elliot was with that night came forward to police to tell them what really happened after Emily left. Well, on the way to meeting up with Emily that night, the friend said that Elliot suspected she was meeting up with another man at the club after reading her Facebook messages. As they drove, Elliot was angry and yelling, hitting the steering wheel and speeding down the road. He even brought a hammer with him and put it in his pocket to take with him to the club, telling his friend that he was going to beat both Emily and the boy she was with the hammer. He said that he doesn't care, he's going to kill her, do 10 years in prison, and once he gets out, he'll still be a millionaire. Once they arrived to the club, apparently Elliot went in while the friend waited in the car. I guess the friend waited for like 3 hours in the car, which is just so weird and bizarre to me. I guess get you a friend that's supportive, that they'll just sit in the car and wait for you for 3 hours. Make it make sense. I'm not sure, but that's what happened. That night, after being in the club and fighting with Emily, he came back out to his friend and acted like he was sobbing and breaking down, telling his friend that he met with Emily and they fought, so he ended up murdering her by hitting her over the head with a hammer 6 or 7 times. He even described how he heard her skull crunch. He said that she's never going to have a family. She is never going to have kids. She pushed him to it. She knew what she was getting herself into. But then he just busted out into hysterical laughter, saying that he was kidding. He then said that he didn't actually kill her, but in an alternate universe, he would have. Then, later that day on the 6th, Elliot and a friend went to a local park where apparently Elliot practiced how he was going to strangle Emily on that friend. At the park, Elliot told the friend that Emily was cheating on him, asking the friend how he should kill her. He was clearly in an excitable mood and was pacing back and forth. To this, the friend responded, "I don't know. I'm not a murderer." Elliot, though, continued firing off different ideas of how to kill Emily, including hitting her on the head with a hammer. He said that he could drown her or set her on fire. Then he said that he could cause her to overdose on drugs, or he could strangle her. After this conversation, the friend went on to describe that the two men started wrestling and having horseplay, again, while Elliot was literally talking about how he wanted to murder somebody. The friend said that he then did a demonstration on how the wrestlers on TV do a chokehold, but I guess the friend couldn't get his arm around Elliot's giant neck, so Elliot took a turn and put his friend into a chokehold. But he started to put a lot of pressure on the friend's throat, so much so that he started to panic and struggle with Elliot. At some point, the friend yelled at him to get off. Once Elliot stopped, the two had a laugh and joked about it. I do think all of this was the same friend, and I think it's absolutely bizarre and very concerning that this friend was just watching as he brought a hammer to the club, threatening to kill his ex-girlfriend with it. Then he comes out and very convincingly jokes about murdering her. Then the next day, he practices how he is going to strangle her. All the while, the friend doesn't say or do absolutely anything. Then, as we know, on the night of the 6th going into the 7th, Elliot met Emily out once again. They fight again, and he throws another fit. Well, during this time, he texted his mom, "I could effing break Emily's neck and beat the F out of her." His mom replied, saying, "Don't do anything inappropriate, Elliot. You're so young and have so much life ahead of you." But, as we know, he did not listen to his mother's advice. At this point, we now know from witnesses and the cell phone evidence that Elliot had a habit of freaking out and threatening Emily's life. He wanted her dead and would stop at nothing to make it happen. But even with this, police still wanted more. So they took the investigation a step further to get an even clearer picture about what really happened. They decided to bug the home of Anita and Lee Turner to listen in on their conversations. Again, at this time, Elliot was out on bail, so they could listen to everything Elliot told his parents. In those conversations, they heard Elliot talk about how him and Emily got into a fight because he asked her if she still loved him, and she said no. He made it out to seem like Emily was the one who started the fight, saying that she was hitting him and kicking him, but personally, I don't believe that at all. Either way, he said to his parents that he couldn't contain himself in that moment. He said that he had been angry for about a month. He said that he felt the aggression building up day after day, but then it all hit him at once and he just lost it. He said, quote, "A screw had literally come out of my brain at 10 that night. I had no conscience at about 10. So when that fight happened, he just flipped and grabbed her and pushed her as hard as he could. That is what he told his parents. To this, Anita replied, "No, you didn't do that." In other recordings, he discussed DNA with his mother. He said that they're going to find his DNA under her fingernails, which they did. He also had scratches all over his arms from Emily trying to fight him off. But he said that he was worried that forensics will link his DNA from his hands to being on her neck. And his mom replied, "Yes, that's why we use self-defense." Not saying, yes, it's because you were defending yourself. It's not, yes, that was warranted because she was attacking you. It was, yes, that's why we use self-defense. Literally saying we're going to use that as our argument, not saying that it actually happened. Then, in another recorded conversation, police heard Lee talking about a letter that was apparently written by Elliot just after Emily's death, where he allegedly confessed to the entire thing. Lee is heard saying that he destroyed that letter with bleach. He justified his actions by saying, yes, Elliot is a killer, but he didn't mean to do it. The letter also apparently said that after strangling Emily, he was going to call an ambulance, but decided not to. When later confronted with this letter, Anita and Lee said that that wasn't actually what the letter said, and they stuck with this whole thing being self-defense. The police also heard in these recordings how Anita threw away a jacket that Elliot was wearing on the night of the murder, which apparently had some sort of evidence on it. During the investigation, police also had seized some computers from the family home. And on those computers, they found Google searches for things like death by strangulation, self-defense, and how to get out of being charged with murder. In the bug, they can hear Elliot discussing these Google searches with his parents. He had said that there technically isn't evidence that she was killed, so they would still have to prove that he even killed her to begin with. All throughout the time of the police bug, they heard multiple conversations where Lee and Anita were worried about fabricating evidence and lying to the police. Lee said in one recording, "We perverted the course of justice. We're destroying vital evidence in this case." To which Anita replied, "Yes, because he is our son. We've done the right thing." Lee responds, "Elliot effing strangled her." In total, police listened to over 291 hours of recorded conversations, and finally, after this, they felt like they had enough. At the time, Elliot, Lee, and Anita were all charged with perverting the course of justice, and Elliot was officially charged with Emily's murder and was held in prison as he awaited his trial. For their charges, Lee and Anita did go to trial and were actually sentenced to 27 months in prison before they were released halfway through their sentence. But even while Elliot was in prison, the family's support did not stop. Apparently, Anita would throw Elliot support parties at the home where they would invite his friends. Then Elliot had written over 25 letters to friends and family members, still bragging about his rich and fancy lifestyle full of Bentleys, champagne, and women. He said that a book deal and a Lamborghini waited for him upon release. Now, as I stated earlier, Emily's parents initially believed that their daughter's death was a tragic accident, but they soon found that she was actually murdered. And when they learned this, it was like the floodgates just opened. This is when they learned all of the abuse that she had suffered. just how unstable Elliots' emotions were and how controlling he tried to be. At the various court hearings, they listened to all of the horrible things he said to and about her, all of the threats he made against her, and of course, they had to listen to them talking about how he strangled her to death. Not just that, but they had to sit through and listen to how cocky and arrogant he was all throughout this entire thing, and how his parents still supported him knowing that he was a murderer. At one of his hearings, Elliot actually tried to plead guilty to lesser charges of manslaughter as a result of self-defense. And let me tell you, Elliot really thought that he was about to get off. Like, he really, really thought that the courts were just going to accept his plea and that he was going to be out in just a few years. Again, he grew up thinking that he had the world at his fingertips, that he could convince anyone of anything and that people would just bow to his every command. But thankfully, that isn't at all what happened. Everybody saw Elliot for exactly who he was, which was a cocky, arrogant little narcissist. By May of 2012, Elliott's trial for murder started. Of course, the prosecution was arguing that Elliot strangled Emily by putting her into a chokehold with his arm, leaving minimal trauma. They brought up everything that we've discussed up to this point, how he had talked about hurting and or murdering Emily for weeks before her death, how he was controlling, jealous, and possessive, the fact that he had scratches on his arms and DNA under his fingernails, how he basically admitted to everything in those police recordings from the wiretap. The prosecution also revealed that Emily wasn't the first girl who he had been inappropriate towards. Back in January of 2008, 16-year-old Elliot was given a harassment warning from police after he had sent his girlfriend a barrage of text messages and emails after she broke up with him. He clearly had a very hard time handling rejection. On the other hand, the defense tried saying that all of this was self-defense, that Emily was the one who started the fight by hitting and kicking him, and that he just responded by pushing her off, resulting in her dying. Thankfully, at the end of the trial, the jury went off for deliberations and came back with a guilty verdict for Elliot Turner. And when it was time for sentencing, the judge expressed his utter shock at the arrogance and lack of remorse Elliot showed throughout all of this. The judge stated, quote, "Your arrogance has been breathtaking. You can put away your thoughts of champagne, Bentleys, and girls and instead concentrate on why you are serving a life sentence." In the end, the judge gave Elliot a sentence of life in prison with the minimum of 16 years served before he will be eligible for parole. Which, yes, he did get a life sentence, but I certainly hope that he won't get out anytime soon. This case started in 2012 and it is now 2024, so thinking that he could be out in just 4 years is absolutely terrifying. From what I've seen, Elliot continues to be an arrogant little douche. Apparently, he brags about receiving fan mail from older women, even showing fellow inmates the letters that were apparently sent from women on the outside. According to one source, though, this resulted in him being attacked in prison, and if I do say so myself, I don't feel bad, and he definitely deserved it. All I can hope is that Elliot continues to get his ass handed to him in prison and realizes that his arrogance and cockiness will get him absolutely nowhere. Mommy and daddy's money can't protect you in prison, and in fact, I don't think most people in prison take kindly to assholes who brag about their family's wealth. But I genuinely don't think that Elliot will ever learn, especially with how unwavering his support is from his psycho mother. I understand that he is her son, but the fact that she was so quick to accept what he did and tried to cover it up is shocking. At least his dad seemed to express some sort of guilt for what he did, but his mom? She was unwavering the entire time. Of course, Elliot has tried to appeal his sentence, but that was rejected. His mother, Anita, is also facing deportation since she is from Indonesia, but I have not yet seen if that will actually happen. As far as I know, she is still free living in the UK. As for Emily's family, obviously, this whole thing is devastating. Her parents have talked about how difficult this has been for them to accept and live with. Mark especially has talked about how he feels like all of this is his fault. He failed to protect his daughter, letting her move to the UK without him. Of course, as objective viewers, we know that this is nowhere near his fault, but I don't blame him one bit for feeling the way he does. But as of right now, that is all of the information that I have on today's case. Obviously, this case serves as yet another example of how scary it can be to reject men like Elliot. The fact that so many people like this just cannot accept rejection is truly scary. It just serves as a warning to others. If you're going through an especially hard breakup with someone who has shown that they are unstable and angry, please don't go anywhere with them alone. Even if they appear apologetic, even if they appear to have calmed down and just want to talk, y'all can talk on the phone. There's no reason to go somewhere alone with a man like this who not only poses a risk to your safety, but who also just simply is not worth your time. So please just try your best to avoid these types of situations. If you have a friend that is on the receiving end of a psycho like Elliot, please don't let her spend her time alone with him. As we can see, it can turn out deadly when we give these psychos a second chance. But that is where I'm going to end today's video, and now I want to know what you all think. What do you think of how this all went down? What do you think of Elliot's parents? Would you defend your spoiled little brat the way they have? What do you think of his sentence? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn that notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure you follow my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, and TikTok. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.